Welcome into another exciting Friday live edition of Locked On 76ers. He's Keith Pompey. I'm Marc Farzetta. ESPN calls out the biggest hole on the 76ers roster. And Keith, as much as I'd like to say they're wrong, they're absolutely right. We'll tell you why and more on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with promo code LOCKEDONNBA. Keith, we've talked all offseason about Sixers problems. Usually what we land on is health and all this, although this one national writer does highlight that. If you consider what the Sixers are trying to consider for the upcoming season, which is maybe they're going to be healthy and maybe an offseason 5-second workout video of Joel Embiid inspires people to believe that they're going to be healthy, assuming they're healthy. What is the Sixers' biggest roster hole right now? And on ESPN, this gentleman, Kevin Pelton, put it out there saying for all teams, their biggest roster hole, biggest hole in the roster, the Sixers, he goes with power forward. And he says, although Joel Embiid and Paul George's health is the bigger issue, thank you for acknowledging that, Philadelphia has no clear starter in between the 6'8" Paul George and the 7-foot Joel Embiid in height. The Sixers will start small with George as their biggest non-center, but they get dangerously small without George in the lineup there. Do you identify power forward, assuming the roster's healthy again here? Assuming the roster's healthy, is power forward the biggest issue?
Yes and no. And the reason why I'm saying yes and no is because, when we look at when the way that Kevin wrote that thing up, he says, they're going to have a small lineup in the starting lineup, right? He says the Sixers will most likely start small with George as their biggest non-center. Well, that's no different from last year. I mean, when Paul George was healthy and when the 76ers were healthy, Paul George was the second tallest guy out there. You had Joel Embiid, 7'2". You had Paul George, 6'8". You had Kelly Oubre, 6'7", 6'8". You had, Tyrese Maxey, 6'2". And then they had Caleb Martin, 6'5". And everyone was saying a year ago, Caleb Martin could play power forward and play it at a high level, right? So now you look at it and you say, let's just say the 76ers right now, if you look at the Sixers, let's say if they start Tyrese Maxey, another 6'2" dude, same as he was last year, Kelly Oubre, 6'8", Quentin Grimes, if he comes, 6'5", and then you got, Joel Embiid and Paul George. So if you look at it, the lineup actually gets a little bit taller if you look at it, because now you know what I'm saying? Or is about the same. It's the same, not taller, but the same. So my question is like when we talk about the issue with that, it's like, okay, well, you went out there and you picked up two power forwards, one in Dom Barlow, the other one in Trendon Watford, who are both 6'9".
Trendon Watford.
Trendon Watford. Trenton, talking about his brother, but they're both 6'9". So the question mark is, can they step up and play with a more prominent role than they have in the past, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, when we look at the starters, I think that you'll have guys in the staggered. Then all of a sudden, certain guys will come out in the first quarter, and then you bring Watford in if he doesn't start, and then you mix and match and play, and what they'll do throughout the games, and they'll close out with who has the best matchup. So I'm not really as upset or concerned with who you start. Is if I know you have at least 2 or 3 power forwards coming in off the bench, and you can stagger that lineup.
I'm only going to say this because I know people really love calling this out. I don't think either one of us, Keith, you or I, believe in the power forward anymore.
Yeah.
I believe I think we believe in the four. That's obviously a thing. But like people think of power forward and they get this picture in their head of a bodybuilder, getting boards for you down below, and that's just not the way it's played anymore. But if you had to say your starting five right now, I have Kelly Oubre in my starting five, and here's why I don't want Kelly Oubre to be traded. Kelly Oubre to me is that versatile player that you could use at 2, 3, or 4. And when the news came out from Jake Fisher about the Sixers potentially shopping him and Andre Drummond, in particular to free up space for Quentin Grimes, which I hope certainly doesn't happen, because of the versatility. And if you're looking at a starting five right now, assuming Grimes is back, well, then you're looking at Maxey, you're looking at Grimes, because especially with the Josh Giddey money awarded, Grimes is going to get starter money. He ain't going to get come off the bench money. That's the way I look at it. So I look at Maxey, I look at Oubre, I look at Paul George, then I look at Kelly Oubre, and then I look at Joel Embiid. And again, this is in the world, Keith, where we're living in a healthy Sixers world, and PG and Embiid are playing. The best foot forward for this team, I believe, is Oubre. Now, after that, Trendon Watford's very intriguing to me for two reasons. One, the obvious, the ability on the court to get the rebound and get the instant push. You could compare it to the world of Ben Simmons, where he had a point forward like that. Now, he is not fast like Ben Simmons was in his heyday here with the Sixers, but he has that ability. I think when you look at that, and then you also look at the ability of Paul George to possibly be a rebound and go type of guy, an instant break type of guy, I think you have some versatility when it comes to the 3 and 4 spots for the 76ers. We're true, you don't have a true 4, but you have guys that can certainly play that position, I think, at a decent level.
I agree 100%. And like, here's the thing. When we talk about height, right, you look at the Boston Celtics and you say to yourself, who was their power forward when they won the championship, right? It was Jason Tatum, right? So Jason Tatum is listed as 6'8". Now, again, I think the major concern is, with more so than the lack of height, is and he pointed this out, is where is Paul George at? Because if Paul George is playing in his prime, and he could be interchangeable, then we really wouldn't have that discussion. Because what we will say is the 76ers right now are a team like playing positionless basketball outside of Joel Embiid. I mean, you might have Tyrese Maxey as the one, but he's more of a combo. But then you look at the other three guys, Grimes, who was actually traded for Caleb Martin, right? Oubre and PG. You say, okay, they're playing positionless basketball. My main concern is, at this particular time, where do you put Paul George at, right? Because you look at it with him being a little bit older, you say, well, can he guard the threes? If not, he has to play the 4, right? No matter who you have out there. So to me, like, when we look at it, like you said, the power forward position has changed. Jason Tatum, was the power forward for the Boston Celtics. When we looked at this past season, you looked at the Golden State Warriors. Draymond Green had always been the power forward, but they had several lineups where he was playing a 5. And you would have like Jimmy Butler playing like a pseudo power forward in certain lineups, right? So, you are right. We're getting to the age of where it's not the traditional basketball. To me, and again, he pointed out, the health of Joel Embiid and Paul George are the biggest factors. But when we look at these teams, for the most part, teams are going smaller. The centers are more athletic. You got guys who, look at Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, a prime thing. He was listed as 6'10", but then all of a sudden, when they start measuring them without their shoes, we realize he's 6'8", right? He's not a traditional 4, but he's a power forward. He and Paul George are around the same height. So, yeah.
Last thing I want to ask you on this subject, because we talked about it before. Do you think PG still has it in him to be I am not saying he becomes your point forward. I'm not saying he becomes your point guard or anything ridiculous. Do you think he still has it in him to get that push, to get that rebound and push and facilitate from time to time? Not an everyday thing, not an every play thing, but do you think he still has that in his game?
That's a great question. And it's kind of like it's hard to answer at this particular time just because he only
just
played
had surgery.
He just had surgery. He only played in 41 games. It was weird because, when we look at it, before Joel Embiid came back, there were certain games where you say, yeah, he still has it, right? He looked like that point forward who shined when the offense ran through him. But there was two things. You can look at it, the level of play, that level of competition they were going up against. The Charlotte Hornets aren't the top team. And B, even though he looked good, when Joel Embiid came back, they went away from it. And he was just in the corner. So it's to be determined. Me personally, I would try, if I was Nick Nurse, at least try to figure it out. Have several sets where he's bringing the ball up to free Maxey up to do other things. Because I do feel like if he can play that role, that would be the best role for him right now as the point forward, so to speak. And you got other guys cutting and moving and doing the things they have to do.
I'd love to see it. You just touched on it. I think it's a whole other, it could really be a whole week of shows just on this topic. But, you mentioned the different styles with Joel Embiid and without Joel Embiid. I think if you're talking about challenges outside of the world of health, of course, if you're talking about challenges to the Sixers team, it's the different versions of basketball, the different styles of basketball we're going to see when Joel Embiid is healthy and when he's not healthy, which again, look, let's get 65 games. Let's get 70 games. Let's all hope for that. But the reality of it is that's very unlikely, even with a 5-second hype video, if you will. That to me is the biggest challenge facing Nick Nurse and the Sixers roster, is figuring out, all right, Joel Embiid's on, let's play like this. Joel Embiid's off, let's play like this. It reminds me of the Jimmy Butler year where they had Jimmy Butler early in the season. They traded for him early in the season. Then at the deadline, then they had to get used to that team. Then at the deadline, they got Tobias Harris, Mike Scott, and Boban Marjanovic, and they had to learn that style of play. And it was like 3 different versions of basketball within 1 year. And then, okay, go win in the playoffs. So it's similar to that. And there's so many different styles they got to learn depending on whether or not they have Joel Embiid. And also, to take it to another degree, also depending on whether or not they have Paul George in the lineup. And this is also, by the way, Keith, at the same time, trying to develop the young players and Jared McCain and VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey trying to be more assertive in the offense. Look, I know people can rip Nick Nurse till the cows come home. This is a mixed bag of nuts you got right now with the Sixers roster. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. When we come back, one team that doesn't really have a mixed bag of nuts, they kind of know what they're doing. That's the New York Knicks, and how it relates to the 76ers, a former 76ers, and what the Knicks have done most recently. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers. We are live. Hit us up in the comments with your questions, concerns, and all that. And if you agree, the 4 spot is the Sixers' biggest roster hole. Back after this on Locked On 76ers. And now let me tell you about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth. Whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments, then you don't have the full picture of everything. Come on, that's where Monarch Money comes into play. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your computer. Monarch is built for people with busy lives just like you and me. If you're putting off organizing your finances, Monarch Money can help you do it very quickly. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can see the accounts in minutes. You can see the clear data visuals and also characterize your spending easily. How about that with Monarch Money? It can help you save. It can help you build your wealth. It can help you. Maybe you're saving for that vacation, putting the kids through college, whatever it might be. Monarch Money can help you with all that. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with promo code LOCKEDONNBA. Keith Pompey. If I was a detective, okay, one of my favorite shows ever is Columbo. I got to say, I know it's a million years old. I know a lot of people that watch and listen to this show aren't going to get it. But Columbo, to me, is the greatest television character of all time. Okay? It literally was a detective show where you knew who did it before the detective, and you were just entertained for the hour or 2 hours, actually, of Peter Falk just figuring it out. Okay? You don't have to be Columbo to figure this one out. Ben Simmons supposedly had interest from the New York Knicks and a mystery team. Okay? Well, the Knicks were trying to decide, according to that New York Post article last week, trying to decide between Ben Simmons or Landry Shamet. Ben Simmons' own agent drops in because I assume he had the offer, and Ben's like, no. Turns it down from the Knicks. They go and get Landry Shamet. And then, right before we hit go on the show today, my friend, Sham Charania puts it out there that not only is Landry Shamet, having already joined the New York Knickerbockers, but Malcolm Brogdon too? How are the rich getting richer, and not in finances, by the way, in talent in New York?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I think that's a big. I think Brogdon is a huge pickup. Now Landry Shamet, I like him as well. As well. Shamet, I felt like he was underused, utilized when he was there, under the previous coach. Because what he can do is he can come in there, he can stretch the floor, he can help things out. But now what you have is, now you have in Malcolm Brogdon, you have a backup point guard who can also play defense and can do a lot of different things that takes a lot of the pressure, off of Jalen Brunson. I know Brunson, if they're going to play anything like they did last year, it's going to be overload on Brunson, offensively scoring and stuff like that. And he established himself as one of the top scoring guards in the league. But you also have Karl Anthony Towns. But also we look at the minutes that they played led to a lot of the injuries. And, no offense to Ben, but I do think that Malcolm Brogdon for that team right now, because what he's going to do. We don't know what we're going to get from Ben Simmons. We don't know, right? But with Malcolm Brogdon, you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to get from him as that reserve role. So I think that's a great fit for the Knicks. I really do. And, let's face it, we're up here talking about teams building championship rosters, right? A couple of days ago, we talked about the 76ers. Like, look, why are you going to get rid of Kelly Oubre if you think you can contend for the East? Well, this is a move that the Knicks are saying, look at our bench now. Now you have Malcolm Brogdon, you have Gershon Yabusele, you got a couple other guys. Dude, this bench is solid. They're probably one of the deepest teams, if not the East in the NBA, not the deepest, because I still think OKC is the deepest team, but they're one of the deepest teams in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
Jordan Clarkson is another guy that they picked up. So, that's another guy.
It's whenever we hear the term wide open East, and we've talked about this before, but whenever we hear the term wide open East, you got the Celtics, obviously, without Jason Tatum. You have the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton. But the Knicks are picking up slack. The Cavs still got a good squad. Orlando's got some young up-and-coming players that are going to prove themselves in this upcoming season, where they could be the guys that are saying, nope, this ain't wide open at all. And the Hawks are another team that seem very well put together. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, you're just sitting, waiting, and hoping that Quentin Grimes resigns. And I like Quentin Grimes. I know I've downplayed it a little bit throughout the offseason, but I do like Quentin Grimes, and I want him back on this team. But I don't look at him as like a focal point must-have type of guy, especially that you are a guard-heavy team already. Now, do I want to see some optionality like the Pacers at the guard position, for instance? Absolutely, I'd love to see it. But I look at some other roster spots, and they're incapable of filling them because you're talking about two-way contracts. You're talking about mid-level exceptions. And you're talking about pining over Gershon Yabusele before the offseason even started. It ain't wide open. These other teams are pretty damn good. And the New York Knicks have a complete roster right now. And they are stopping at nothing from, they look at it as a wide open East, but they look at it as a wide open East that, they can absolutely win. The Sixers need a lot more to go right than the Knicks in order to win this Eastern Conference.
Oh, yeah, a lot more. A lot. A lot. And as much as we get back to it, and we keep saying it over and over again, it's true. A lot of it is dependent on Joel Embiid and Paul George health. A lot of it, because there are major question marks. Like, how are you going to utilize Quentin Grimes? Can Watford step up on a team that's looked upon to be a contender this year? Can he do that? What about Jabari? What about Jabari Walker? What about Don Barlow? What is the learning curve going to be for VJ Edgecombe? There's a lot of question marks, and that's why, you always have to go back to the health of Embiid and Paul George. And then not only that health, but is Paul George, was his demise a part of health, or was it Father Time finally, knocking on the door saying, bruh, you're not the same dude? So it was a lot. Yeah, the Knicks look good. The Knicks look good on paper. They look great on paper.
So let me ask this question then about our old friend, because I think it's over. If Ben Simmons isn't signing a minimal deal with the New York Knicks, if Ben Simmons is being dropped by his own agent and Landry Shamet becomes the better option, and they could also get Malcolm Brogdon, it would appear to me, and it also didn't come out immediately who the other mystery team was, and then he signs with that mystery team. It would appear to me that Ben Simmons has played his last game in the NBA. And I'll say this, I'll give him this for the foreseeable future, because you don't know if he goes somewhere else, rediscovers the love of the game, blah, blah, blah. But right now, it looks certainly like Ben Simmons has played his last game in the NBA. Do you think he's played his last game in the NBA?
That's another great question. But I also think it goes back to the Paul George question. And what I mean by that is, we have to see how things play out. Because here's the thing with Ben. When we talk about Ben Simmons, we're talking about a guy who did not want to sit on the bench when he had a boot cast on his leg because he didn't want to look bad. We're talking about a guy who didn't shoot 3-pointers because he didn't want to shoot 3-pointers. He didn't shoot 3-pointers because he was fearful of missing them and how it would look, right? I think that when we talk about this situation right now, because if you look at it, the stuff that was coming out was the Knicks, they wanted him to try out for the team. There were no guarantees that he was going to make the team, right? So I feel like it was over for Ben Simmons because he didn't want to not make the team, if that makes sense. Now, yeah. I think that, let's just say we get past training camp or somewhere else, and there's a team that needs a player, and they're willing to give him a here, Ben, we're going to sign you through the rest of the season. I think we can see him in that scenario. But if there's a right now where you say, nah, bro, you got to come in here and you got to try out to make this squad, yeah, I think it could be over. But if there's somebody saying they want him and they're going to pay him, I think that we could see him come back. I do. I just don't think that at this particular time, knowing that you got to try out for a squad, nah, it's not happening.
I was trying to think of where it was that Markel Fultz ended up, and it was with Sacramento. But he played 21 games last year for Sacramento, but really missed a lot of time. Was a late acquisition there. Literally was signed in 2023 by the Magic. Or excuse me, had a career night for the Magic that night. And then in 2025, that's when he was next with an NBA team. 2023, 2024 with the Magic. And then 2024, 2025 signed late in the year in February with the Kings. So, yeah, roster need could certainly play into it. But I'll say this, I think camp opens up and Ben Simmons is still looking for a home. I'll say that at least.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I just, and I know that it sounds crazy, but once I found out I read and hearing that it wasn't something guaranteed, basically, you're going to try out for this team with a minimum salary. I was like, nah, that ain't working. That's not working. Because you know what it is? Next thing you know, the headlines, Ben Simmons does not make the Knicks. You know what I mean? You feel what I'm saying? It's
oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's a shot to the old ego there. And our friend DK, aka Mr. Sandman, says, how does someone become this arrogant about basketball? Well, I'll say this. I don't know. I don't think it's about becoming. I think it's just a state of being, put it that way. I think Ben always had that arrogance about him with the game, unfortunately. And that arrogance steered him the wrong way when it came to trying to improve his offensive game.
I think it's more so to do with a little bit of insecurity too. Like, and sometimes you ever notice, like, like, it's a weird combination, but we've all had friends before, like, like, for instance, we grow up and the guy would be on your basketball team or your baseball team, football team, whatever. And he was probably the best athlete that you ever knew. And everyone loved him. But deep down inside, he could be like he could be abrasive at times or rude to people at times. But you always said, wait till you get to know him. You get to know him. Because when you really know him, you know that all that arrogance, the abrasiveness, the rudeness kind of masked some insecurities that were there, right? And I feel like that, Ben is a really nice guy. I like Ben Simmons. I do. Once you get to know him, right? A really nice guy. But I do believe that there are some insecurities there that lead people to believe that he's this extremely arrogant guy. I do. So with that being said, I get what people say, but, insecurity where, like, I'm not going to try out for a team. I'm not going to do this. And then also let us keep it 100 too. We're going to go. We're talking about a guy who everything was given to him early on. Everything, like, he didn't go to Kentucky. He went to LSU, right? He comes the first overall pick with the Sixers, and the ball was just handed to him, right? He makes the All-Star team. There was times in the fourth quarter where we knew he was struggling. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Brett Brown never took him out. He would, he would freeze up. They were playing 4-on-5. They never took him out. And I think that right now is the first time that he's facing adversity, so to speak, the last couple of years. And, he's having a tough time dealing with it. He is. Yeah.
I will say this. I have had conversations with Ben Simmons over the years when he was here with the Sixers, obviously nothing after that. And I was surprised. It was, this is going to sound so crazy, but he reminded me a lot of Andy Reid. Because Andy Reid on the microphone was such a different guy than the Andy Reid before the microphone was turned on, before the camera was rolling and all that. Ben was like a goofy guy before we would start the interview and the mic would be on and the camera would be on and all that stuff. But then everything would turn on and it would just be boom, the screen would go up. Yeah. And he was just one of those guys. And he was one of the most drastic cases of that I had seen since just talking about sports figures in Philadelphia in general. The next drastic case of that would be Andy Reid. The most drastic was Andy Reid. Let me get that out of the way. But in that same vein, it was, nope, protection mode. Shut it down. No personality. So I always thought that was really, I always took those away from my conversations with them. Like, oh, why is that? Because if people saw this side of him, maybe they'd understand a little bit more what's going on there. So I do find that interesting. Yeah. When we come back, Keith, I'm hoping we're in our final days of this. Although I do love asking the question and your great improvisational skills. When we come back, I'll ask you for the latest edition of Grimes Watch. Mm-hmm. But right now, let me tell you about FanDuel. FanDuel is incredible. FanDuel is here. The NFL season is here as well. FanDuel is making your kickoff Sundays and game days can't miss. When it comes to this special offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. That's right, just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All you got to do is use FanDuel. Take full advantage of it. It's quick. It's easy. It's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your game days. It makes every game day that much more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy football league. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet, whether I'm feeling a player prop, whether I'm feeling a same game parlay, or even jumping in the live action as it all unfolds. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to get started. And place your first $5 bet, and if it hits, $300 in bonus bets across the app. That's FanDuel.com. Oh, hey there, Keith Pompey.
What's popping?
On remote, by the way. Quentin Grimes been signed yet by them? Hold on.
Nah.
I'll do something too. I'll do something too while you're. There we go.
Oh, my man. My man.
It's been sitting there calling my name for the last 25 minutes. I had to.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say don't say the last 25 hours. Like, oh.
No, I would. You kidding me? My grandmother let me waste food, and I bet, even if it's only espresso. Come on.
Yeah. I could drink cold coffee.
I heard
before it was something like iced coffee.
I heard Bill Murray makes a pot and then just lets it sit out like all week, and then he'll just like throw ice in it and drink that for like a week.
Wow.
Yeah, no thanks.
Is it because he's cheap? Or what? Like, yo, Bill?
Cheap or lazy? Like, cheap or lazy?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, just get it. You're Bill Murray. Get a Keurig or something, dude. Come on.
I know. Wow, I didn't know that. Wow, a week. That's crazy though. Like it's like, yeah, that's bad. That's bad.
Do you see breaking news over the weekend? Do you see next week this all comes together with Quentin Grimes? We have the Giddy money in. We have Quentin Grimes posting photos of himself in a Sixers uniform again. We have training camp that it's just ticking away before we're all reporting to training camp here in Camden. And then Abu Dhabi. Do you think next week we get this news, Keith?
I think so, man, because and if not next week, the week after. If not, then there's a problem. I mean, I do. Because then it's really a problem. Like the problem is that these guys, like, they're further apart than we ever envisioned, right? Because everything is set up. I mean, everything is set up for you to get them. I mean. Now it's like, okay, or do you think you're better than Josh Giddey? Well, maybe we don't. And the reason why I'm saying that is because that's how negotiation goes. Like they tend to bring up the negatives when they go in there and they try to attack that. And then after everything, they tell you after you sign, like, oh, you're the greatest thing. We really think you're better than them. But no, I would be shocked if we don't see Quentin Grimes signed heading into media day and training camp. I would be.
All right. And when's media day again? The 22nd?
The 26th, September the 26th.
The 26th. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
September the 26th. Yep.
Real quick, Win Forever's in here says, so to be honest, y'all take Ben Simmons back? Question mark. I have said no all along. I'm still saying no. Would you take Ben Simmons?
The same thing. I said the same as well. Yeah. I mean, and, no offense to Ben. I just don't think. I think that ship is sailed.
I agree. And Mr. Sandman's back. He said, that's just marinating flavors with regard to the coffee. That's the way to.
You know what? I could understand if you made a cup of coffee in the morning. And like, again, I said, I'm not opposed to drinking cold coffee. I'm just a coffee drinker, right? But when you say you got the pot out there for the whole week, like, I start thinking about mold and all other types of things. You know what I mean? Like, that's just gross to me. It's like, is it healthy? Is it healthy to drink that? Like, come on.
You're building up antibodies. You're building up the antibodies.
Yeah.
My in-laws come and visit. I literally don't keep the coffee machine out. My in-laws come and visit. I bring it back to the kitchen and I plug it in. And then maybe later in the day, if they got like a half pot left, maybe that's when I'll actually have a full-blown cup of coffee. Other than that, it's espresso and Americanos. That's what we have an espresso machine in the kitchen. It's fantastic. I don't know how anyone who has ever had an espresso has ever gone, no, coffee's still better. I don't get it. It just doesn't appeal to me. Much rather do the smaller cup, if you will. Get the quicker jolt. Keith, we got a weekend ahead of us here. Let's cross our fingers for some breaking news. Everything's leading up to training camp, obviously, at this point. We'll be back with you guys next week for a whole new week, a whole new run of shows with Locked On 76ers. And, of course, don't forget to check out Locked On NBA Top 100. It's here, voted by the NBA hosts of Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by the experts that cover these teams on the play and players every day. Find the full list of Locked On Sports today at YouTube, on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. And make sure you check it all out, especially Keith and I weighing in on Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George and where they rank on the list. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You guys are great as per usual. Have a great weekend. Keith, you as well. Safe travels, my friend. We'll talk to you guys Monday. See you then.
Peace.